So you're probably wondering, why did I actually play that particular theme song, tune, um, piece of calypso, soca music, whatever you want to call it. Hi, thank you for watching. It's Leisha. Thanks for subscribing. You might want to share this one. Yeah, let's just keep it real. So as we know, over the last few years in particular, we've had some issues with deportation and what we would call the Windrush generation. Now, I do have my views, I do have my comments, which I've pretty much kept to myself until this particular moment. There are some, I would say, that came over here and from the West Indies, from various islands, let's just say. But at this moment in time, Jamaica seems to be the highlighted island. All right, my grandparents came here from Jamaica, and then they sent for my mum a few years later, and my aunt. And during their time, should we say, whether you call it visit, indefinite stay, second home, Queen and country, motherland, whatever you want to call the UK or Great Britain, Commonwealth, they were invited. My grandparents worked for the transportation services. They then went on to do other things with their careers, let's just say, but they were fortunate enough to find themselves in an area that perhaps gave them a little bit more opportunity. Maybe the fact that they maybe conformed to certain requirements, managed to get themselves into those jobs that most would dream of, i.e., like I said, transport. My grandma then went on to do bigger and other things for a very well-known communications company. She was the first in her field, one of a kind, that sort of thing. Speaks very well, and can only give thanks for that kind of influence that I've had, that's enabled me to be able to use my vocabulary to, understand what they would say good grammar, good English, Queen's English is all about. My parents, like I said, both come from the West Indies, different islands, but my mum came from Jamaica when she was young. Now, throughout her time here, she, was predominantly educated in this country. She has spent, a very long time in this country, and a little while back when I was younger, it was questioned about citizenship, and there was a push, from what I can remember from when I was young, that it wasn't like there was a discount or a sale on citizenship, but it was advisable in the, I would say, mid-80s, if that's what I remember rightly, when there was emphasis in order for certain people of this country to investigate their legalities in regards to their citizenship, their status, their visas, their indefinite stays and that sort of thing, and actually go away and find out if you are safe, especially if you have children that were born in this country. So that's exactly what my parents did. There was a fee, I believe, I can't recollect how much that was, but at some point they both kind of semi-celebrated that they felt slightly safer being in the UK, especially because they had me or had children in this country. So that I don't always, in fact I can't say I don't, I believe they were unhappy that they had to choose a citizenship or denounce their original country of origin, as in regards to being a sort of citizen per se, legally, on paper. But in the same instance, I know that, like I said, they were They did it to protect what it is that they had started to create and build in this country. So in regards to the current situations about deportation, I find it really difficult that, a fair few thousand people are in this country and have been for a several lengthy period, but have not done very much to figure out whether they're safe to remain here, and then go on to have families. So I don't feel like they've even sort of considered the fact that they haven't protected their families. Now, I know being part of the Commonwealth and being invited and all of that kind of stuff kind of made us feel safe. Yeah, we are right. One of them ones there. We're not have to do nothing yet. We invited. We come to build back the country. Well, besides the fact that there's a lot going on in this country, which leads me to my next point, which unfortunately is like the Brexit issue. It brought out a lot of racism in this country, in the UK. A lot of feelings, a lot of internalized thoughts suddenly, surfaced, and people generally started to say how they felt. Go home, you guys don't really need to be here, where you come from, questioned. Lots and lots of questions that perhaps a few years ago wasn't maybe in the forefront, wasn't so apparent. It was subliminal, but it wasn't in your face out there. So I myself have had those questions, those looks. Oh, how come you speak so well? Were you born here? Oh, them kind of ways that is a surprise that, we've been established in this country for quite some time, and, some of us are actually born here, so don't be surprised that we can speak the language. This is unfortunately one of the only languages I speak. Funny that, isn't it? Whereas when you actually go back through your ancestry and you find out that they speak Spanish and Portuguese and Creole and Patois, and there's lots of things that weren't passed on because they felt embarrassed or ashamed or belittled to hang on to what they would call their native dialect or their native form of communication even. Sorry, forgive me. So that's where we are now. We're no longer part of Europe. The racism is real. I'm not going to talk about the types of people who are being sent and being deported and what's happening to them, really, because that is a completely different issue altogether. And it just appears to be that it's our turn. We were invited first, so when we've no longer useful in this environment, when we're no longer protected in this environment where we are, it's like, it used to be last in, first out. That's not the case here, is it? So it feels as if we're now surplus to requirements. So that leads me to a real strange, maybe twist on things, something that I've kind of noticed and is more apparent because a lot of people around me have mentioned something, either along these lines or closely connected, or they know somebody who is either, like infertile or struggle to have children. And, where this is going is in regards to the bigger plan, the grand scheme of things, where things are going, this current virus. So I'm going to leave where I am in this moment, where I am, if that makes sense. I'm not going to continue the conversation intent and take you where it is that I want to go next, because that's going to be something, like I said, that I want to go into a bit more detail. But I just wanted to speak about this whole deportation thing and question a little bit about why we are only now reacting, why it wasn't a problem 20 years ago, when just because it wasn't being spoken about doesn't mean to say it wasn't happening. This has been going on for a very long period of time. Now, we know a lot of men are being sent, back home. I use that word so loosely. They're being sent back to the place where they were born. Now, that doesn't exactly mean it's home. And just a real similar, small, silly example that I can use is, how many of you still live in the same place where you were actually born? Where I was born, the hospital's not even in existence and hasn't been for many, many years now. So if someone was to tell me, go back to where you come from, I could if I could afford it. In London, in Westminster, okay? But that's not the way it is. We don't remain, we're nomadic people. We've always moved around. And the fact that, we were technically invited here makes you wonder. I need to know why my lights have gone out. So I'm going to do a little bit of a part 2. I'll be back.